I'd like to help you ask good questions. Good questions are those that can be answered quickly and accurately. Good questions are opportunities for learning for both the person that is asking the question and the person that is answering. Asking a good question is not as hard as you might think, but it does take a bit of work and planning. I'd like to start with a few examples of poorly asked questions. The serial monitor is stuck at connecting. There's nothing here to help the person that is answering the question to even get started. There's a lot of different reasons why this problem might be happening, but the requester here is not providing any context or information that might help towards solving it. Is the Arduino trying to connect to a web server? Is there a successful serial connection via USB? The requester doesn't provide any information to help eliminate many of the possible causes for this problem. How do you program the Arduino to do a program without using a computer? This question does not seem to refer to an actual problem with an Arduino sketch or circuit or with anything else that this course is presenting. It seems that the person asking the question is trying to do something perhaps out of the ordinary. I can suspect what the requester might be trying to do, but that's just speculation at my part. The requester here should describe the goal and any context to help me answer it. Also, consider the fact that the question is really out of context for this course, since it isn't centered on any of the lectures in it. We now have our Tech Explorations Maker Club private Facebook group that is the perfect place for questions and discussions like this one. I've been trying to run your sketch on LCD and DHT11. It keeps giving me an error that says termination error. I guess the problem here is perhaps with the communication between the computer and the Arduino that is preventing the sketch to be uploaded. Since it seems that there is an error message coming out of the IDE, the requester should have copied and pasted that error message as part of the question. He or she should also have indicated whether the upload process worked or not and what they've done to fix the problem. You can also see that the requester is using no punctuation. The words LCD and DHT are all in lowercase letters, and there are also a few typos. All these are giving the impression of a sloppy person who perhaps has not taken enough care during the assembly of the circuit and the handling of the upload process. How do I add the LEDs to the accelerometer sketch? What I think that the student is asking here is probably something that I have shown in one of the lectures in the course, but there seems to be something subtle here that the student is confused about, and this is not coming out the way that this question was asked. Note that this is not the title of the question, it's a question itself as I received it. Does anybody knows where I can get a fiber optic hydrophone to measure the acoustic pressure and associated thermal effects, etc., etc.? I'll let you analyze this question yourself and think about whether it is properly worded, whether there's enough information about it, and perhaps even if it's asked at the right place in the Q&A tool, or perhaps whether it should have been asked in the Tech Explorations Makers Club. I've not changed any grammar, cases, or anything else in these questions. In a couple of cases, I removed other text that did not contribute anything to the question, these examples concise. When I receive such questions, I will do my best to answer. However, it won't be easy for me or the student that asked it. Normally, I will try to figure out what the student is trying to say by looking at the lectures they have completed so far. This takes a lot of time, so I may have to postpone it for later. Then I will have to respond to the student with several probing questions. The student may respond to them a few days later, but by then both the student and I will have forgotten the details of the question, requiring more time to get back into its context. Such questions often show confusion to begin with. This means that the student doesn't really know what they want to ask. When you can't ask a clear question, it is a clear indication that you need to take one or more steps back to fill knowledge gaps or improve your understanding. Often, it's better to ask about those gaps instead of the original question. Before you ask a question, be thoughtful. Are you asking the right questions? Is it clear? Does your question contain enough specific and contextual information to make an answer possible? Here's a few tips to help you ask a good technical question. Is this a question about the content of the course or a problem with it? If it is about a problem, like a broken link, a missing resource, or a mistake in something I said, then post an error report on my form at texplore/bug. If it is a question about the content of the course, then think about what is it that you're trying to do. This is your goal, and the answer to your question is meant to help you achieve this goal. Make sure that your goal is clear and that you can explain it in clear, simple language. Include your goal in the question. What is the problem? The problem is what is preventing you from achieving the goal from the previous step. For example, the problem may be a bug in your sketch. You know there's a bug because the IDE is producing an error message. Make sure that you can describe the problem clearly. Include the code that contains a problem and the error message that the IDE is producing in your answer. What have you done to deal with the problem? As a student, you're doing yourself a disservice if you ask for help immediately as soon as you hit a roadblock. You learn a lot more by dealing with problems when compared to learning what happens when everything is just flowing nicely along. Once you have sufficient clarity on the goal, problem, and research, start to write your question. Start with a descriptive title. Don't just say help. Describe the question with a few words. Then write a short paragraph explaining your goal. Then another paragraph explaining the problem. And then, you guessed it, a third paragraph explaining your research, which is what you've done. Below that, provide anything else that might help me help you. Screenshots, sketch code, error messages from the IDE, your computer's operating system, your Arduino IDE version, the Arduino board you're using, etc. Try to be as concise as possible. Don't use half words or slang or local idioms. There's a lot of free tools to help you fix typos and syntax. Google Docs is free. Use it. When I see things like termination error, typos, and LCD and DHT11 too lazy to use uppercase letters, I strongly suspect that the person that asked the questions is sloppy and lazy. This indicates that the problem may be due to poor understanding of whatever that person is working on, and that they probably have not truly attempted to fix it on their own. Only ask a question if you have struggled to answer it yourself and struggled a lot. Use Google, Stack Overflow, the Arduino documentation, and go back to the lectures in this course in your attempts to find a solution. If you still can't find the solution, then I've got your back. But in your question, you still need to describe what you did to find the solution. Knowing what you've already tried will save both of us time. I won't ask you to try something that you've already tried and look elsewhere for possible solutions. Follow these guidelines and your questions will be totally awesome and a pleasure to answer fast. Always keep in mind that solving hardware and software problems remotely is not always possible. For example, problems that involve networks are notoriously difficult to solve remotely. A unique combination of hardware, routers, internet service providers, and network settings and devices that are different between networks make this very tricky.